Thank you so much. Good morning. I'm Igor Treguk, retired Berkeley Land Stabilization Board Commissioner and a native of Kiev, Ukraine. So I really resonate with your comments about how together the IOA Climate Emergency Declaration is a very important step forward to divest from what funds split its war machine, $258 million a day in oil alone, and instead invest in a democratized renewable energy supply. My question is this. In California, we just installed a 1.5 million rooftop solar system. That's 12 gigawatts of distributed, renewable, affordable energy. But in California, at the same time as the IOA would provide a historic 40% investment tax credit on solar, there's a proposal at the Public Utilities Commission to tax distributed generation, detrimentally impacting working and middle-class families and communities in particular. For those of you in different states, what advice do you have on how to ensure that our states in their policy levers are not working at cross purposes with what the federal government and the Biden administration are doing? Thank you.
Anyone want to jump into that one? It kind of it goes along with an interesting security related question we got online where just from being a former state representative, it's challenging because the other side has a strategy to go state by state and put what they call sun taxes in motion. And they were actually successful in Nevada at one point, put a $50 tax on rooftop solar, which is kind of ironic considering that population base doesn't like taxes, so to speak. So fortunately, that was reversed by the Nevada legislature. But this is an example of a strategy that is being put in place by the oil and gas industry to delay what's happening here. And the question here was very much on the security angle of how what we're doing at the local, state, federal, national, and international level can help us be more secure. And every rooftop solar in California and every place across the US adds to our energy security. And it aggregately adds up. Now, the neat thing is because Putin and other autocratic nations, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, right? They're so desperately single source funded by oil and gas. What happens when we're off it? It's actually an existential threat to them that we get off oil and gas. And that helps democracies across the world. So there are many double benefits to this. And I believe the supervisor here had an experience in Africa working with General Clark, where he saw this firsthand.
Yeah, when I was on the Joint Staff, my last assignment in the Air Force, my boss was Wesley Clark, who was the NATO commander. And I met him some years later, 2014, 2015, at a cocktail party right here in Washington. And I asked him at the time, I said, and this was 5, 7, 8 years ago, what the #1 security threat in the world was today. And he looked right in the eye and said, Ukraine. And the reason is because there's a perceived dependence. If there's a perceived dependence, then there is a de facto insecurity. That it makes an insecure environment if one party is dependent on another party extensively. And if anything has been shown to be true, it's that in the war in Ukraine. Look at the dependence that Europe has on oil from Russia. And that entire conflict has been fueled, no pun intended, by the oil shortage and by the dependence of Europe on what Russia has to give. The answer with the oil and gas industry, I maintain going forward, and I don't know how to do this, but I don't know, we are being held back as an anchor when we try to compete with their interests in Congress and with all the legislative bodies throughout the world, frankly. This is an existential threat for them that we can come off of fossil fuel. Somehow we have to turn the corner by making it profitable for them to make the transition. I don't know how to do that, but that's how we have to be. We have to bring them into the sustainable field somehow. Their fuel prices are going up, sustainable energy fuel prices are going down. That's just economic reality. We have to bring them over into that economic paradigm if we're going to ever make them allies rather than enemies. I'm not sure how to do that. But again, if there's a perceived dependence, then there is by definition de facto insecurity.
And unfortunately, it goes with water and energy together. Across the world, 50 million people are displaced. This is the highest it's ever been in modern history, displaced due to conflict, right? It's double what it was 10 years ago. So when you have big migrations of individuals and folks struggling, that creates instability too. So there's a lot here to work on. It's directly impacting people's lives.